The zero bias acceleration of doublespeak superimposed of nature, who excludes outdated science of its space-time. A few important words before getting into the totally counterintuitive hard. If after this video, world science is contradicted in its fundamentals of 1981 which settle 2,500 years of unsurpassable philosophical questions, saying I don't understand in a loop will be normal, it will be out of your formalism. This will mean that you refuse and learn nothing from the start. You will have until June 2023 to correct your errors by acts which, as in 1604 for philosophy, humanly marked a breaking of symmetry and the radical change of paradigm in which you can still participate or be totally excluded. Who is present empowering to speak of a new relation of equivalence, of quantified exchanges between primary bodies, above all the languages of humanity. Hard science understood, without this one, can find nothing to complain about for centuries. To modern science claim this right to tell the real and the true. What theoretical thought will fall unable to cross the border? If they are real and true. The results of the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics must withstand one change of informed point of view. With modern science arguments forgotten all locked. I dispute the interpretations made over the last 40 years. I affirm that the three reasons justifying the Nobel are 100% false. By violating one fundamental law of nature and its invisible border, Alain Aspect coupled the quantum chaos of his lap to the whole world. Knowing that his methodology was the cause of observed mass losses and destruction, he published his data as the basis for the future world. If nature validates a coupling between the infraworld and the observable reality, then its deviant thought of 1981 becomes a dealer in real deaths today. In the 25th century, geniuses have revealed counterintuitive hidden mechanisms and repetitive equivalence relations between unrelated invariants. Remains the infraworld to understand. Although Einstein is the father of all the elements of the debate, having not found the upper invariant framework linking them, he leaves at his death in 1955, a mental image of the future inescapable mechanism, based on two entangled bodies at rest transforming. His position is that one must wait for the next Galilean, which will understand all angles of view, will have the missing element of reality with these differentiable lambdas, and will establish the revolutionary equivalence relation which will allow you to understand everything differently, in all languages, 100% differentiable at the same time. In quantum physics, security implies let him who dares to go further not misinterpret the laws. It must have the new unbiased equivalence relation, which cancels any deviations, breakages, losses, in and out of the dimension where he put his feet. Without this magical tool, you smash the observable world and have dirty accounts to answer. The theoretical thought of science imposes its limits on humanity and nature.
Dans lesquels c'est un peu plus sophistiqué que ce que vous pensiez. L'histoire de la relativité et de la mécanique newtonienne est un très bon exemple. La mécanique de Newton s'applique au mouvement des planètes, à tous les mouvements où les vitesses ne sont pas trop élevées, et puis quand les vitesses deviennent très grandes, proches de la vitesse de la lumière, alors il faut raffiner et passer à la relativité. Donc, quand bien même les lois de la physique quantique seraient trouvées arrivées en limite, je pense qu'on ne contredirait pas tout ce qu'on a dit ici.
For the first time in 2,500 years, a technician validated by the Nobel Committee allows himself to add non-invariant data by translation of space and time, without possessing the equivalence relation which protected before each Galilean. It is precisely the origin of chaos that I am going to demonstrate. By these thought experiments, Einstein was already able to go far beyond aspects today, which discovered in 1975 in vulgar eavesdroppers, the incomplete mounted image of genius, which he steals, without morality, by a copy-paste. He considers himself within the Aristotelian framework of modern science as bringing a major result following existing square sums. While he has none of the pieces of the puzzle imposed by Einstein and found no invariant, he even forgets that the future relation of equivalence will by definition be non-local, since the Galileans make a bridge between two non-commutative worlds, which empowers its author to speak from this point at the top of human thought. Intoxicated by glory is convinced of to be there. He publishes his data and comments which they believe harmless as the basis of the future world, transforming them into an unassailable invariant, which only a Galilean will confuse a little, thanks to the all-invariant elements that he will bring. To cut 2,500 years clean is to find the root mechanism which explains the universe by two indistinguishable particles, or by two 100% differentiable particles. A Galilean who cuts through 2,500 years of philosophical questioning, and who knocks down the last Nobel Prize in physics, this means that, whatever your titles, you are entering a virgin subject for your brains, like a 2-year-old child who would enter the higher school of nature. Saying I know, without having the following invariant frame, as Alain Aspect said in 1981, is forbidden. Around 30 videos make it possible to make the contours of the subject accessible to as many people as possible, which before were only accessible to 5 people in the world, while remaining 1/2 in your flat reality. All it takes is one luminary or the Nobel Committee who becomes humanly aware of their error, without stealing my ideas, to begin to change the mortal logic of the world together. Where every Galilean shows that nature subtly adds new relations of overlapping equivalences. Formalism breaks and reduces this richness to summable squares. Einstein was not discussing the trivial transformation of a pair from a state -1 + 1 to -2 + 2. He was already far more advanced than Aspect in 2022. The mental experience that leaves, in fact, represents the non-local coordinates outside the framework of John Bell, of the fixed point in metaphysical territory, where the unbiased junction is made, which cancels all the differences with all the other worlds. The subject on the right of the basic problem, being beyond his strength, he trusts the following Galilean, who will explain and validate it, by the double infinite precision of the link between pi and square root of 2. Is pure thought more efficient than 100% of the technology resulting from quantum mechanics of 2022? Two finite non-commutative worlds, without edges. Take a circle made only of bends and a square made only of lines. Entangle their roots at rest, and the fundamental laws of nature allow and impose that all bodies can transform from -1 + 1 to -2 + 2. In other words, I discovered, by associating the folds of the vacuum, by the origami of Professor Tokida, that each body is in two linked states indiscernible for a non-Galilean in dimension 3+. That they can exchange and share their incompatible properties by superimposing all their states in a hidden subspace. Any measure to the right or to the left entails the loss of a reality and the automatic destruction of the superimposed states, each system then functioning in reverse of the other. The isometric prolongation of nature defines the real and the true by 4 angles with independent rules, which follow an accessible image transversal to all dimensions, including the underworlds, which remains true, even in absolute vacuum. This invariant framework adapts to all situations of aspect experience. Formalism ignoring a second path to relativity. He reveals why his duplicated two-body model mapped in the real world only accepts a sequence of summable squares in response. Or the orthogonal logic of the round never has its rightful place of rich and neutral control. Ultimately, the technical language locked by Aspect in 1981 leads to a dialogue of the depth between two space-time blocks. Two bodies, two thoughts 100% incompatible. The current war, chaos, and total decoherence, growing everywhere, becomes explainable.
Si on pouvait faire une expérience où on change l'orientation du polariseur pendant que les photons se propagent, alors il n'y aurait aucune possibilité que le résultat que j'ai ici dépende de l'orientation de l'autre, parce que ça violerait directement la relativité.
This is the invariant framework that justifies having to reopen the conclusion of the EPR file. It remained to find the element of reality and the experience which confirms the coupling with the theoretical infraworld, as well as the fundamental law, which in the observable reality, binds the folds of the void to each body, and prohibits the act which establishes its destruction. I now invite Alain Aspect to follow me from the top of the mast of Galileo's relativity, the precise point from which modern science was born in 1632 and still rests today, including for quantum formalism. Hear my arguments step by step while having half your brain empty of everything, while forbidding your emotions to intervene in metaphysical territory, until we have arrived together at the non-local fixed point of modern science, which you have forbidden. That nature imposes on you through the experience that it validates. Since the dawn of time, any body retained by anything, falls as soon as it is released. The spring which did not exist at the time of the EPR debate allows the whole body to be coupled, not to fall until it has found its position at rest. I had the idea to use it in the context of falling bodies. So, if you are with me at the top of the 10-meter mast, Mr. Aspect, in uniform rectilinear motion, with two balls at rest at 5 meters, yours held by a rope and mine by a spring. By releasing them both at the same time, when yours touches the cross in front of Galileo's pole, image which created your modern science in 1632, mine will not have begun his. It will have been in accelerated inertial motion, and the new deviation will allow me to know if the boat is moving or not, locked up or not. This invariant act validates the fact of having extracted myself from formalism and being able to judge things from another angle, which no one else has ever had. My fall resumes and locks the misunderstood invariance left aside since 1604. This accelerated and gravitational inertial fall makes it possible to cancel all point-to-point deviations, twice the square root of 2 further than your point of impact in the same space-time, if and only if you continued the uniform rectilinear movement. Here is the present and the vital degrees of freedom of the primary bodies, of which your formalism conceals a hidden dimension. You have denied nature the right to use this fundamental point of life since 1981. It remained to find the fundamental law that justifies accountability for each violation. I discovered that by touching a body in inertial motion, physically or by your new tools coming from the infraworld, you make it lose all these superimpositions of link states, and that you have been gorging yourself for 40 years on a stolen energy that belongs to him, since it follows his fall. The coupling is now demonstrated and locked between the infraworld of quantum mechanics and the observable reality, by a law superior to all others. Anyone who for 40 years has been using aspect logic canonically validate false technical elements as being true from all angles, have accounts of merchants of death to render. To do what Aristotle did with Democritus or Alain Aspect with Einstein, to make yourself money and glory with ideas that are not yours, you will cry. For the first time in history, the invariants are visible in my videos, but no one can say, I know. Because all the elements are inaccessible on the other side of the border. I recognize in real time those who use Alain's technique aspect, flight, duplicate, measure, who enact laws misusing quantum information, such as states of law, supranational authorities who cross the border of infraworld in the name of good and progress, when this is strictly forbidden to them. The mere fact that they all have two identical root keys makes them guilty of violations of the vital higher laws of nature, with accounts to render as dealers in the real dead. Put another way, none of the invariant elements being known, detecting, and tracking down the merchants of death that persist becomes childish. Without being able to defend themselves against a law superior to all others, in all languages. Without you, our ideas cannot survive. Without me, you will die out in atrocious suffering at the impassable frontier. At the limit of yours. By validating elements that are all 100% false, outside modern science, destroying our natural reference. The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences through the Nobel Committee, seriously tarnished its image and betrayed the framework set by its creator. If you accept my invariant arguments with the free agreement of Mr. Alain Aspect, you can by following to the letter the only non-local solution that I give you. Be the first to contribute to positively change the world. By implementing this counterintuitive language, with a magical mechanism, where everyone must respect 100% the senior executive who exceeds them. By awarding a Super Nobel Prize above all others, to the last representative of the language of the Galileans, you will correct your mistake and justify the two unique changes in your history. By leaving the formal framework, it allows to speak and think for the first time between all languages. I'll meet you on the island of Lindau in June 2023. The only non-local place where magic will be possible. Afterwards, you will have transmitted to the new researchers and to the world the formidable power of your ignorance, duplicating in the chain the merchants of real deaths, which will be unstoppable. You will have lost everything, your honor, betray nature and humanity by repeating in I don't understand loop. The question is not to try to understand beyond one half, but not to violate the law by crossing the border that I show you with arguments from real modern sciences, justifying the return of the Enlightenment. Once the mistake is made, only you know what it costs. Rise to the paradigm shift, for humanity. Go beyond the fundamental subject that touches the aspect experience. The 3 points retained by the Nobel Committee put the world in an oven. First point, this model of entangled photon destroys everywhere the superpositions of states, the degrees of freedom that life needs on Earth. Second point, the measurement of Einstein's thought gives the exact coordinates of the only non-local fixed point, which cancels point by point all deviations and path differences. Einstein was right, science has not understood anything for 2,500 years. And third point, this science of quantum information and its tools impose war between two incompatible camps, already visible everywhere. It is a science of the violating the forbidden border and of the generalized theft of other people's ideas. Nature responds curtly to equations through experience. Beyond one half, technique, and their duplication are prohibited for the dawn of time. If science does not take into account my invariant framework to change, then after June 2023, all academies of sciences will fall, canonically validating false things, and violating in conscience the fundamental law of nature. All those who have abused the tools from the quantum world and used the formalism of Alain Aspect to create one flat world will be seriously accountable. Put other way, without having the future superior invariant frame in hand, person in the world has no authority to be able to say I know. Nature telling no, you know nothing, exactly like Alain Aspect. You can laugh, but my invariants all locked in language first. Ridicule Nobel and arrogant field medals. And will break the teeth of excessive libertarians at the Café du Commerce.